Hello, students. This is Professor Berger, and I'm coming to you today with a message and an introduction to our first unit and our first module. This is Unit 1 on Antigone, writing a literary analysis, a character analysis of the play. So hopefully what you can see in the background is the page that I'm opened on, modules, right? There's our getting started, first day of class. And here's our first content module, Unit 1, Essay 1 on Antigone. So what I'm going to do in this introduction video is take you through the module, very similar to what I did in the introductory video with the Getting Started module. And I'm just going to click through the pages and give you the highlights of each page. I'm not going to read it word for word, but just kind of give you a sense of everything that's in that module, explain what is mandatory and what is sort of optional supplemental materials, and what we're hoping to accomplish with the module and where we're going with it. So it's mostly a big picture, and normally these introductory modules are anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, but I'm going to keep it at 45 minutes, maybe even a little shorter, okay? So treat this in your mind, if you will, as sort of like we're in class, right? Canvas is our classroom, and this video is like an introductory lecture, right? So if we were in class together and we were sitting there face to face, I would be introducing you to the paper assignment, to the literature, and that's kind of what we're doing in this video. I'm talking directly to you through the help of technology and just taking you through the unit and the objectives and the tasks, etc. Okay, so it's me giving personal direction and information on our current unit. This module, Module 1, will go for 1 week. Remember, 6 weeks, 6 modules. And so this module starts today on Wednesday the 8th and goes through next Wednesday, July 15th, and it finishes with your first essay. So submission of your first essay before midnight on Wednesday, July 15th. So it's a 1-week module. All right, so let's jump right in. Let's get started. And as you can see, again, I'm in modules, which should be your home page, okay? A lot of this information is also available in files, organized in folders, but again, you don't have to hunt around on Canvas to find documents or videos. Just log on, it'll take you straight to modules, and go to the current week module, and everything's set up for you, clearly labeled and placed in sequential order, just like you were coming to class every day and I was presenting this information and we were talking and engaging. All right, so I'm going to go to the beginning of the module, Unit 1, Introduction, and I'm going to click on Brief Overview and Instructions, okay? So this is our first page of the module, and normally the modules will start with a brief overview of the learning objectives and general instructions. As you can see from this page, right, we're working on Greek tragedy, Antigone, a Greek play written by Sophocles around the year 460 BC. So that's generally the genre and the theme, Greek tragedy. Now, more specifically, what we're looking at in this module is writing a literary character analysis for our first essay. That is a character analysis of either Antigone or King Creon from the play. And the themes that we're generally or loosely looking at are the individual, that is individualism, and society. So this idea of the individual versus society, individual versus the collective, right? Justice and leadership. Okay, so those are kind of like 3 buckets or 3 big ideas that we're looking at right now. Again, our primary text is Antigone by Sophocles, the Robert Bagg translation. And the skills that we're looking at focusing on in this unit are practicing a close reading of the text, the writing process, specifically brainstorming and crafting a really solid introductory paragraph to your literary analysis. We're also focusing on a close character study and a literary analysis. What does it mean to really dig deep into a character and into a text and analyze it? Now, notice that I said analyze, not summarize, okay? So your character analysis needs to be just that, analytical. We're not looking to summarize or, repeat what happens in the play, right? Summary repeats the action, the plot of the play. We're looking to have an in-depth look at the significant issues and questions of the play surrounding one of the two main characters. These are sort of the big ideas, and that's analytical, not a summary. Okay, so it's a very important distinction to understand. And then finally, MLA formatting and documentation, which we'll talk a little bit more about toward the end of this module with your paper checklist, and also next week, Monday and Tuesday, before you submit the final copy of your first essay. Okay, so here's a list of the shorter assignments to anticipate in this module. There will be a short reflection, a discussion board. The discussion board is our class engagement. It's designed to help you make connections, have some conversation between each other, share ideas, and also recreate that feeling of class where you're not just engaging with me, right, through these videos and email and maybe virtual conferencing, but you're also engaging with your classmates, right? Remember that these modules online are our classroom, okay? So we're looking to not only present information, but to engage each other. So you'll have a discussion board every week. We are going to have a short brainstorming task or assignment. That's a step in the writing process. You'll be submitting a draft of your introductory paragraph, and then your culminating formal assignment will be your Essay 1, a character analysis of Antigone. Again, you're going to focus on analyzing one character, either Antigone or King Creon, the two main characters of the play. So here are the instructions for working your way through this module. Number 1, work through the content and files of the module before finishing reading Antigone. So part of this module is content. It's an introductory video, which is this right now, which you're viewing. It's PowerPoints, it's documents, the literary Essay 1 assignment sheet, the rubric. This is all course or module information, documents, files. And I want you to look through and look over that before you actually finish reading Antigone. And the reason why is because that's going to tell you a lot about what you need to focus on while you're reading Antigone. It's going to give you some insight while you're in the process of reading and reviewing the text. And then number 2, after you finish reading Antigone, come back to the module and begin working on the tasks and the assignments. So you'll notice that one of the tasks is a post-reading reflection, right? Obviously, that reflection needs to come after reading Antigone. Then a class discussion board, then a brainstorming and pre-writing task where you're actually working on your first essay, then a proofreading checklist before you submit the final copy of your essay, and then the last and culminating task is submitting the final copy of Essay 1. So again, these are all tasks that you are to perform and to complete after you've finished reading Antigone, right? So think about this module as spanning the course of a week, right? And covering roughly a week of class in which we meet and engage. So half of this module, again, is content and material to consider while you're reading Antigone. The second half of this module is comprised of tasks that are really, about their post-reading Antigone, and really it's the writing process, reflecting on the reading, the discussion board, the brainstorming, the proofreading checklist, etc. Okay? So that's a big picture of the module. As always, email me if you have any questions about anything. And you guys have probably figured out by now, by day 2, that I'm online every day and I'm accessible. I've emailed with a number of you, and I've even talked to a couple of you on the phone. A couple of you reached out to me and we had just a really short, like 5-10 minute conversation if you were had any questions that you didn't want to necessarily email back and forth about. So uh, again, I'm really, really happy to answer questions, and I much, much prefer that you would reach out to me if you have any obstacles, challenges, or questions. Then just, don't be shy and wait till the last minute when the paper's due and say, oh my gosh, I didn't understand this. Just reach out right away, okay? I really don't mind. All right, so that's our overview and instructions. I'm going to go ahead and click to the next page. And so the next page here is pivotal scenes from the play. So everything in the play is great. Antigone is one of my favorite plays to read and discuss with the class. I absolutely love Antigone. Now, you don't have to love the play yourself, right? I don't necessarily expect students to love it the same way I do. You don't necessarily have to be an English major or a scholar to just appreciate a really great story. And that's what this is. It's a great story about Antigone and King Creon, two people with very different worldviews, very different points of view, very different values and ways of expressing those values. And they're both passionate and headstrong people, and they clash, right? They both dig in. And then what happens afterwards is really, just classic Greek tragedy. You may even see in reading Antigone some of your own friends and family members, right? You might connect with some of the things that you see in this play. In my opinion, Antigone and Creon aren't just characters in a play. They're really sort of character types, and we've all probably known an Antigone, somebody like Antigone who's super passionate, just really passionate and about justice and equality, and we love that, but maybe they're a little bit blinded by their passion. And Creon's very similar. He's really sort of like this, hey, it's important to have structure and order and follow the rules, and he's passionate about that as well, but he's somewhat blinded as well by his passion. And it's just really interesting to see what happens when these two individuals clash. You've probably seen something like that in your own life. And so, again, I love this play, and I hope you enjoy reading it and connect with it. Another really interesting quick note is that Antigone has a fascinating backstory. Now, we're not reading the whole trilogy that Sophocles wrote, but there's a backstory to Antigone. She has a very dysfunctional family life. In fact, Creon is her uncle, okay? So this is not only a conflict between a citizen and a king, okay? It's not only a conflict between an individual and one person's conscience and sort of the ruler and the leader, the new leader of the city of Thebes, but this is a family conflict. This is a family dispute, and it's playing out in front of the whole city of Thebes. So this is sort of layers of drama, which make it all the more interesting. And Antigone and Ismene, her sister, are actually the product of an incestuous family relationship, which is just another layer of dysfunction and drama to the backstory of Antigone and her family. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of history, a lot of pain there. The city of Thebes has just come out of a bloody civil war, and Antigone and Ismene have just lost both of their brothers in this bloody civil war. And one of the few remaining relatives they have, besides each other, is their uncle, who is now the new king of Thebes, and that is Creon. So it's a very complex family story. I normally tell students it's good to have just sort of a general idea of this family background, but if you go back and you do too much research and reading, it might actually get a bit confusing and distracting. What you really need to know for this play and for this paper is that Ismene and Antigone are sisters. Creon is their uncle. They've just lost both of their brothers in a civil war, and in which the brothers killed each other, actually. And they also have lost their mother and father before the Civil War. So they've lost basically all of their family, with the exception of each other and their uncle Creon. So that's the important thing to remember about this family. And this gives you kind of a good general backdrop to our story. So as you can imagine, there are lots of really great moments and scenes. But what I've provided on this page are 7 really pivotal or key scenes. And these are scenes where I think you need to slow down, read them carefully, and make sure you take notes on these scenes. I also think that any really strong paper, really excellent paper, is going to reference a couple of these scenes, depending on the character you're writing about and your argument. You know, there are some key scenes for Antigone if you're writing about Antigone, and likewise if you're writing about Creon. But take a look at this list of pivotal scenes. These are really amazing moments for Antigone and Creon, and even for Ismene and Haman, who is Creon's son. So make sure you pay close attention to those scenes, and when you're looking back on them or reading them, reflecting on them, here are a couple of points to consider. What are the characters' attitudes? What are their words? What is the character saying in this moment? What do you think the character is feeling? You know, are they motivated by anger, fear, love? And finally, what are the character's actions? So there's definitely a relationship between what we think and feel, say, and do, right? There's a strong relationship there between those 3 ideas, our thoughts and feelings, our words, and our actions. So consider that when you're looking at these scenes. Also, really, really important, what is a strength of the character in this moment? What might be a weakness or blind spot? Antigone and Creon, they both have strengths and weaknesses. They both have blind spots. Actually, everyone has blind spots. If you're human, you're imperfect, you've got strengths, you've got weaknesses, you have blind spots. These are things that about yourself that other people recognize, but you don't see. It's kind of like that blind spot in your when you're driving a car, okay? It's there. Others might be aware of it, but you aren't, okay? So think about that. And then finally, does the character demonstrate any reflective thinking or self-awareness in this moment? Does the character demonstrate any remorse, right? So, you know, these are really good things to consider. Antigone and Creon don't necessarily demonstrate a lot of self-awareness at the beginning of the play, but I would argue that both of them demonstrate a little bit more self-awareness toward the very end. Now, I'm not saying that they change or that there are big changes, but these are just sort of tiny little tweaks in their point of view. And I think that both of them demonstrate, Creon definitely demonstrates remorse, but take a look and think about whether or not Antigone demonstrates any remorse. I think that there are a few interesting lines before she, in her sort of goodbye scene, when she's saying goodbye to Thebes, it sounds a little bit remorseful, but does she really regret anything she's doing? I would be really curious to hear what many of you think about that. Okay, so here are the scenes with the page number and the line numbers. And this is, of course, based on the Robert Bagg translation. And here is my book, right? Antigone by Sophocles, Robert Bagg translation. You can see that I've marked it up. So the page numbers and line numbers are based on this text and translation. All right, so that is that page, Pivotal Scenes. Check it out. Okay, so what we have next in the module is a PowerPoint on Antigone. And I'm going to let you guys kind of work through this PowerPoint. It's not long at all, but it just has, sort of a guided analysis or evaluation of the play is what I would call this PowerPoint. And it breaks the play up into 3 parts, part 1, part 2, and part 3, sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the play. Manageable chunks, as I like to say. So take a look at this PowerPoint. This is part 1, as you can see right here. It's a couple pages, but in part 1, the question that I ask students, and if we were in class, I would show you this PowerPoint and we would just kind of engage on it. But things to think about. Here are the main characters: Antigone, Creon, Ismene, Antigone's sister, Haman, Creon's son, but also Antigone's fiance, okay? This is very much a family story, as it is a story about justice and politics and leadership and, the individual versus society. It's very much about family as well. So think about motivation, right? What motivates any or all of these characters? What kinds of beliefs and values do these characters demonstrate? What are their choices and actions? And I'm just going to scroll through here. Here's a quote. See if you may not have already started reading Antigone, that's okay. But this is one of my favorites. Your edict was strong, but all your strength is weakness itself against the immortal, unrecorded laws of God. They are not merely now, they were and shall be operative forever, beyond man utterly. How does this quote relate to larger issues or big ideas, right? That's what we're trying to. This is a significant quote, and it's actually Antigone speaking directly to Creon. And so what I ask you is, who is speaking, right? Who's the intended audience? Well, it's Antigone. She's speaking directly to Creon. What is the meaning or importance of this quote or this message? And what do you think the main conflict, pardon me. What do you think the main conflict is in Antigone? So you don't have to do anything with these PowerPoints except scroll through them, look through them, think about it, and let the PowerPoint be a guide to your reading Antigone. That way, you're not just passively reading the play, but you're really actively engaged with reading Antigone, thinking about it, taking notes, right? Asking questions. And that's what this PowerPoint kind of helps you do. Think about it and ask questions. Now this is kind of an interesting, let me see if I can get my screens. I can't quite get this page all the way up, but this is a pre-writing activity, or actually really it's more of a brainstorming activity. And you can do this on a piece of paper. You can do it in 2 columns, 2 charts or 2 boxes, or the front and the back of a piece of paper. But think about some adjectives to describe Antigone. How would you describe Antigone? What kinds of words come to mind when you think about Antigone? And in the other column, what are some adjectives that come to mind when thinking about Creon? How would you describe Creon? So it's really just kind of a good brainstorming activity. There we go. I got the page to move up, and you can see on my PowerPoint, I ask this question every time I teach Antigone because I think it's a really good way to start thinking about the character that you want to write. Is think about adjectives that you would use to describe that individual. Okay, and again, you can do that on your own, on paper, on a Word doc, typing it up if that works better for you. Okay, part 2, Antigone, part 2. So here's another short PowerPoint. It's the same really, but it focuses more kind of on the middle of the play. And here we have another quote. Reason is God's crowning gift to man, and you are right to warn me against losing mine. I hope that I shall never want to say that you have reasoned badly, yet there are other men who can reason too, and their opinions might be helpful. You are not in a position to know everything. You are not in a position to know everything. Who is speaking to who here? What's the point of this quote? What's the message, right? What values or beliefs can you infer about the speaker from this quote? Well, if you go back to the quote, look at that first line. Reason is God's crowning gift to man, right? So I would argue that the speaker here definitely values reason, right? Logic. And look at some of the other points of this kind of speech. I hope that I shall never want to say that you have reasoned badly. I hope that I never, look back and say, wow, you made a really bad decision there. That was really bad reasoning. Yet there are other men who can reason. There are other people who can make good choices and have good insight into problems. Their opinions might be helpful. Hey, they might be able to help you with the problem, help you reason something out. You are not in a position to know everything. Nobody can know everything. And that's really true. If you're human, none of us know everything, right? So frequently we need to consult others. We need to, in trying to think through a problem, ask others for advice. At least this is kind of my takeaway when I'm looking at this quote. So how does this relate to larger issues or themes or big ideas of the play? So think about that. And if you've done a really good job of reading Antigone, then you will be able to identify who is speaking here, right? Okay, so this is kind of a big hint here, right? Father and son, Creon and Haman, okay? And these are just some bullet points. There's a big scene where Haman confronts his father, right? And Creon wants to know his son's mind. Haman has come to reason with his father, right? This is a tremendous scene. What happens in this scene? I think it's a play about reason, about logic, about justice and leadership and following our individual conscience. But it's also a play about family, right? This isn't just the king and a citizen, but Haman is Antigone's fiance. Haman is Creon's son. Think about the position he's in when he confronts his father. He's speaking to Creon as a citizen of Thebes, as Antigone's beloved, as Antigone's fiance, as Creon's son. He is really caught in the middle here in a very difficult and complex situation, and he's trying so hard to convince his father, to persuade his father to change course. And it's really interesting to notice how the conversation starts, very calm. Notice how it ends. It looks very much like a family struggle, a family fight. Think about, what is Creon's point of view here? How does Creon feel? How does he express himself? Creon is acting as both king, leader, and father, right? Because he's speaking to Haman. What is Haman's point of view? How do you think Haman feels in this moment? How does he behave? Remember that he's not only the prince, but he's the king's son. What is the leader's role in this dialogue? The leader who shows up and pops up throughout this play is kind of like a mediator. Sort of sits back and observes, comments, and toward the very end of the play has a little more interaction. But right now, the leader is kind of hesitant to say too much, to intervene too much. But the leader is present, and we're aware of the leader's presence. Sometimes the leader will comment on the action. At the end of this long scene between Haman and Creon, what choices does our king make? What choices does Haman, the prince, make? Here is another brainstorming tool. It's a character matrix and just a way of organizing a psychological analysis of the characters. And I've got the characters going down and then principles, motivation, choices or actions, and examples going across. So this is completely optional, but in your reading and in reflecting on the play, you can just draw something similar to this table on a piece of paper. You can recreate it on a Word doc, or maybe you could just copy and paste it and, type up some or jot down some quick notes. The examples are specific scenes from the play, right? So this might help you to begin to pre-write for your essay. Okay, and finally, the last part of this same PowerPoint, part 3, is final scenes. Creon, Tiresias, the prophet, who is also blind, and then the leader or the chorus. And the leader and the chorus are like the elders and the senators of Thebes. Some things to think about, right? Who are they? Who is Tiresias? Who is the leader, the chorus? What is their attitude, right? What are the beliefs, principles, values? Think about Antigone's final stand. How does Antigone behave in her final moments before death? This is before she's sort of marched off for, we'll say, execution loosely. Technically, I believe she's buried alive, right? That's a terrible death. But she has a very dramatic scene here, and she gives this long speech, which is kind of like a goodbye speech, right? And some questions I have for you is, what do you think of Antigone's choices? Is she a tragic heroine? Is she just tragic, right? Do you think that she's kind of got leadership qualities? Is she really a hero? Or maybe she's just being very stubborn and tragic in this moment. What do you think of Antigone? And a great scene between the prophet and the king, Tiresias and the king. And Tiresias, at the end of the play, many people have reached out to King Creon and tried to get him to change his mind, to not execute Antigone for breaking the law. And Tiresias is the last one who really, really reaches out to Creon. And again, it starts out very calmly, but it ends really sort of in this shouting match, very passionately. And take a close look at this scene, right? Think about why Tiresias is there, how Creon receives him. How do you think Creon is feeling in this scene? What is Tiresias's point of view? He's sort of like the prophet or the oracle for the city of Thebes, right? He's sort of like a guardian for the city. And he's really trying to warn Creon that he's headed down a tragic, a terrible path. And then also the unraveling of Creon. At least I have labeled pages 81 through 87, really the very end of the play, the unraveling, the undoing of Creon. What do you think about this scene? Is it just Creon's fate? Has he learned his lesson? Who gets the final word in the play? The very end of the play, who actually has the final lines? It's the leader. Okay, I'll tell you that. And it's very interesting to see what the leader says in the very end, right? The leader doesn't say much throughout the entire play, but the leader does get the final say. And a lot of scholars suggest that the leader in the play is actually the voice of Sophocles, speaking directly to his audience. Are there any heroes at the end of this play? Is Antigone a role model for modern day feminists or readers, social justice warriors, activists? Is she a good role model for just anyone, right? An individual who wants to stand up for themselves? What about Creon for modern leaders, right? I would argue that, we can learn as much, if not more, from our flawed characters, our very flawed and tragic characters. I think we learn a lot more from our mistakes and from those tragedies. And so while Antigone and Creon are both flawed and there's a tragic ending, I think there's a lot here that we can glean and learn. But I leave it up to you as to what we can learn, what you think we can learn, if anything. And really, that's a big part of your job in this unit, is after reading Antigone, reflecting on it and making meaning out of the play for yourself. What do you think are the big takeaways here? Okay, how is this play meaningful to you? So that's our PowerPoint. Do take a look at it. Here is the actual paper assignment, a critical document. I am going to touch on the highlights. You need to make sure you read it word for word. So a rough draft of your introductory paragraph is due Monday, July 13th. Now I still need to add the link in Canvas, but I will do that this afternoon or certainly by Thursday, okay? The final copy of your essay is due Wednesday, July 15th. before midnight, okay? That link is already up and at the end of this module. So here's the paper description. You will compose an original literary or character analysis of the Greek play Antigone by Sophocles. Your writing prompt is in bold and underlined below. Carefully follow directions in composing your essay. Write at length about one of the two main characters, Antigone or King Creon. This is an in-depth psychological character analysis in which you must get inside the character's mind, explore, discover, and uncover the bigger issues and questions, the why behind the character's actions. Here are some questions to think about in your pre-writing. You can answer these questions in your paper, or you can just use them as a brainstorming tool. There are additional directions here, right? The required length is a minimum of 750 words, which is around 3 pages. You can be a little bit under 3 pages, but please no longer than 5 pages. Here is a section on expectations, what I'm looking for. So make sure you take a look at that. And then finally, in bold at the bottom, you must answer the bigger, more interesting questions in your paper. Think big ideas, not plot summary. So this is an analytical paper. It is objective. It is formal. Please avoid using first person, I think, I feel, I believe. Just remove that and make a direct statement, okay? Be confident in your assertions and your analysis, and be analytical and objective. No plot summary, because I've already read Antigone, so I know what happens in the play. You must break down your character and study that character and analyze that character. And a really great paper, an excellent paper, ties that character analysis to a big idea. Okay, so make sure you look at that on your own. Here's the rubric for assessing your first essay. Again, I'm not going to read this word for word, but I will show you the categories. Your argument is worth 30 points. Content and ideas is worth 25 points. Right? Structure and organization, following the outline that I give you for developing your essay, that's worth 25 points. Grammar and diction, 10 points. And then following MLA format, 10 points. All of these categories combined equal 100 points. And so that's how I'm assessing and grading your paper, through those categories and that breakdown. And if you run across it horizontally, you'll notice that within the individual categories, there's a bucket. For example, on argument, which is worth 30 points. If you're missing a thesis statement, you only get a few points out of 30. If you have a solid thesis statement, it's like maybe 20 or 20-ish points. If you have an excellent thesis statement, this is the focus of your essay, and your body paragraphs fully support that thesis or that argument, then you get most or all of the 30 points out of that category. That's the way the rubric works. So let me go ahead, take a look at that on your own. I'm going to flip through here. Here's a short reflection on Antigone. Now that you've read all of Antigone and taken copious notes, reflect on the play, think back. Here are some questions. Compose your reflection in paragraph form. It should be thoughtful. It doesn't have to be long to be thoughtful, but a couple paragraphs. It's worth 10 points, and here's a mini rubric. Here's our class discussion board. Post a question, answer a question. Now that you've read all of Antigone, taken copious notes, and had a chance to reflect on the play, that was the previous task, what is one question you still have about the text? So one question you still have about the text. So you're going to post a question, make sure you read all of the directions, and then go back a couple days later and engage one of your classmates and answer a question. And that is worth 6 points. All right, here's an extra credit opportunity. Okay, it is optional. It is extra credit. Find an inspiring quote and post it, then respond to a classmate. So it's a discussion board, doesn't require lots of intense research. It doesn't necessarily have to relate back to Antigone, but it can if you want. This is just kind of a fun and engaging discussion board, another chance to connect with your classmates, and it's due Monday, July 13th. The way you're going to get the bonus points is just, do a good job. Make it thoughtful. Find an inspiring quote, something that's encouraging, supportive, inspiring. Be authentic. Don't post anything that you don't really believe in, but find that quote. If it's with an image, post it, explain why you chose it, and then go back and you do that maybe on Friday or Saturday. And then go back on Monday and respond to a classmate. The purpose here is to, again, engage and connect with your classmates. You can get up to 3 bonus points on the final score of your first essay. All right, and I've already posted a quote for you. You can take a look at that and respond. And then writing a thesis, a literary analysis. This is a tool. It's a PowerPoint on how to really the nuts and bolts of writing a literary analysis. This is probably a review for most of you. It is not long, it's 6 pages, and there are some videos embedded in it, right? Short videos. I will tell you that the video on how to write a thesis statement, it's 4 minutes long, how to write a thesis, and it provides 4 steps for developing your thesis statement. Answer the prompt, refine your answer, focus with examples, go deeper. 4 steps for writing a really great thesis statement. This video is 4 minutes long. Again, it's optional. It's really a review, but check it out. If you're comfortable and you say, hey, I've read the assignment sheet, Professor Berger, and I'm really comfortable and confident. I don't need to review the PowerPoint, then that's fine. But for those of you who are interested and might, maybe you haven't been in an English class for a while, maybe you haven't written a literary analysis paper for a while, check out this PowerPoint. Check out the embedded videos, and do let me know if you have any problems accessing any of the videos. Sometimes I have to double click on them a couple times to get the videos to open up. But they are very short and I think really informative. The last couple slides are about basic essay structure. This is a review, okay? Again, if you haven't written a college essay in a while, or an essay on a piece of literature, you might want to check it out. The last one, what are the do's and don'ts of writing a formal essay? So I think all of this information is generally a review. That's why I leave it as optional, but it is good information. So it's there as a tool if you want to take a look at it. Brainstorming worksheet. This is another optional tool, okay? These are just questions to help you think about the character that you're writing about. And feel free to copy and paste this, copy it down by hand on a piece of paper, copy and paste it into a Word doc, use all or part of it, but it's really just a brainstorming activity. Again, this is optional. Pre-writing tool for building your essay. This is mandatory. This is the outline I want you to follow in composing and developing your essay. And it starts with your introductory paragraph and everything that should be in your introduction, with an explanation about your thesis statement, and then an explanation about developing and writing the body of your paper. You should have 3 points or 3 subtopics. You can have more, 4 or 5, but you really don't need more than 3, but that's fine. I would say 3 to 5. And you should also have a conclusion, right? Provide smooth closure to your paper. So you need to have an introduction, you need to have a body to your paper, and a conclusion. And this outline breaks it down for you within your introduction, the body of your paper, and your conclusion, what those 3 sections of your paper should look like. You do need to follow it, so take a look at it, and feel free to email me if you have questions about any of this. For many of you, again, this might be a review, but it's really good to take a look at and just refresh your memory. And again, this outline, this format is what you need to follow in writing your paper. Okay, essay paper checklist. So strongly recommended. You need to proofread your paper before you submit the final copy. And here's just some guidelines for proofreading your paper, starting with format, organization, using evidence or examples from the text, language and grammar, and then writer ethos. So take a look at that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Email me if you have any questions, but you're strongly encouraged to take a look at your rough draft and proofread it before submitting the final copy. And here we go. This is the end of our module, the culminating writing project, which is your final copy of Antigone, your first essay. Here are some links to the assignment sheet description, the rubric, and the outline that you need to follow in formatting and organizing your paper. 100 points, 10% of your overall grade. And then again, here's the rubric again, right? So take another look at this rubric. And this kind of helps tie it all together. Now we're at 45 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this introduction video. This is a lot of information that I've given you, and what I'm going to do is just remind you to start at the beginning of every module. And sometimes you have to mark it as done in the top right corner before you click next. Go to the next page. Remember that you cannot submit any assignments or tasks until you've completed the previous pages. And Canvas makes you work through the modules in sequential order, okay? But as always, if you have questions about any content, about anything at all, or having any problems accessing anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Okay, we're at 45 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there. Have a great day, and I can't wait to see all of your thoughtful posts. Bye.